Imagine a powerful leader, once feared and respected, dying in exile far from his homeland. But was it really just an ordinary end for a man like Napoleon Bonaparte? You might think you know the story, but the truth is far more surprising than you can imagine. What if the common beliefs about Napoleon's death are completely wrong? Many people think he died from natural causes after years in exile. The truth involves a mix of illness, politics, and conspiracy. This myth shapes how we view his legacy today. Understanding this myth helps unravel the mystery surrounding his life and death. What really happened on that fateful day in 1821? After his first abdication, he was exiled to the island of Elba. Elba was supposed to be a peaceful place for him to live out his days. Napoleon managed to escape just 10 months later. This escape showed his resilience and determination to reclaim power. But what was the reason for his final exile to Saint Helena? Upon returning to France, Napoleon gathered support from his loyal followers. He re-established himself as emperor in a matter of days. His return sparked the 100 Days, a brief but intense period of warfare. This bold move raised questions about his true motivations. As his leader he portrayed himself to be. The Battle of Waterloo was a pivotal moment in European history. It was fought against the Seventh Coalition, a group of nations. Napoleon faced a fierce enemy led by Duke Wellington. The battle marked the end of his rule and ambitions. How did this single battle change the course of history? Did Napoleon's health play a role in his demise? Napoleon struggled with health problems during his later years. Some historians believe he suffered from stomach cancer. His health deteriorated while in exile on St. Helena. Understanding his health issues sheds light on the challenges he faced. What exactly were these health issues? Was Napoleon poisoned as part of a conspiracy? There are theories suggesting that he was deliberately poisoned. Some believe his food was laced with arsenic. This theory adds a layer of intrigue to his mysterious death. The evidence behind this theory is still debated among historians. Could there be truth to these shocking claims? After his death in 1821, an autopsy was performed by his physician. The findings indicated severe stomach problems. However, the autopsy did not confirm the poisoning theory. This medical examination fuels ongoing debates about his true cause of death. Many nations sought to remove him from power permanently. His exile was heavily influenced by the political leaders of the time. Understanding the political context helps frame his actions and decisions. Napoleon's death left a significant impact on France and Europe. Many viewed him as a martyr for his ambitious ideals. His legacy continues to spark debate about his contributions and flaws. This complex legacy makes him one of history's most studied figures. How does history remember him today? His life in exile was marked by isolation and reflection. He wrote memoirs and engaged with visitors about his life. These interactions reveal a different side of his personality. This phase of his life challenges the typical narratives of a fallen leader. What insights can we gain from his final reflections? Many works of art depict his life, battles, and eventual death. Literature often romanticizes his story, shaping public perception. This cultural portrayal affects how history remembers him. Analyzing these influences reveals the power of narrative in history. What stories are we telling about him today? Opinions on Napoleon vary widely based on historical perspective. Some see him as a revolutionary leader, others as a tyrant. This debate continues to resonate in discussions about power and leadership. Understanding these views allows for a deeper analysis of his impact. Where do you stand in this ongoing debate? His last words have sparked numerous interpretations and stories. These words reflect his thoughts about power and legacy. The mystery surrounding his final moments adds to his enigmatic persona. Unraveling these words gives insight into his mindset. What significance do these final words hold? Napoleon's relationships with his family influenced his decisions. His son, the King of Rome, faced immense pressure to uphold the legacy. Family ties played a significant role in the political landscape. Understanding these dynamics provides a personal dimension to his story. How did family expectations impact his decisions? Napoleon is known for revolutionizing modern warfare strategies. His tactics are studied in military academies worldwide. This impact continues to shape military strategies today. Analyzing his methods highlights his genius and innovation. What can modern leaders learn from his approach? His story serves as a cautionary tale about ambition and power. Consequences of his decisions are relevant in today's political climate. This reflection encourages viewers to consider their perspectives on leadership. Understanding this can help you navigate modern challenges. What lessons can be applied to your own life? Many theories about Napoleon's demise persist, from poisoning to natural causes. Each theory offers a different perspective on historical events. Investigating these theories reveals the complexities of historical truth. This exploration invites viewers to think critically about history. Which theory do you find most convincing? Napoleon's remains were eventually moved to Les Invalides in Paris. This location symbolizes his complicated relationship with France. The site attracts thousands of visitors each year. Understanding his burial site adds another layer to his legacy. Final resting place say about his life and legacy. What if the common beliefs about Napoleon's death are completely wrong? Many people think he died from natural causes after years in exile. However, the truth is much more complex. His death involved a mix of illness, politics, and conspiracy. This myth shapes how we view his legacy today. Understanding this myth helps unravel the mystery surrounding between his life and death. What really happened on that fateful day in 1821? After his first abdication, he was exiled to the island of Elba. Elba was supposed to be a peaceful place for him to live out his days, far from the chaos of political life. Many assume this exile marked the end of his power, but that's not the full story. Just 10 months later, Napoleon managed to escape. This escape demonstrated his resilience and determination to reclaim power. But what was the reason for his final exile to Saint Helena, a place even more remote? Upon returning to France, Napoleon gathered support from his loyal followers. He quickly re-established himself as emperor in a matter of days, showcasing his ability to manipulate public sentiment and political alliances. His return sparked 100 Days, a brief but intense period of warfare that shocked Europe. This bold move raised questions about his true motivations. Was he really the ambitious leader he portrayed himself to be, or was he driven by desperation? The Battle of Waterloo was a pivotal moment in European history, often seen as the turning point that sealed Napoleon's fate. It was fought against the Seventh Coalition, a formidable group of nations united against him. Napoleon faced a fierce enemy led by Duke Wellington, and this battle marked the end of his rule and ambitions. How did this single battle change the course of history and reshape Europe? Did Napoleon's health play a role in his demise? While in exile, he struggled with health problems that many believed contributed to his decline. Some historians suggest he suffered from stomach cancer, which would explain some of his debilitating symptoms. His health deteriorated significantly while on Saint Helena, raising concerns about the conditions of his exile. Understanding these health issues sheds light on the challenges he faced. What exactly were these health issues, and how did they impact his final days? Was Napoleon poisoned as part of a conspiracy? Some theories suggest that he was deliberately poisoned to prevent him from returning to power. It's claimed that some of his food was laced with arsenic, adding a layer of intrigue to his mysterious death. This theory, however, is still heavily debated among historians and remains controversial. Could there be truth to these shocking claims that complicate the narrative of his death? After his death in 1821, an autopsy was performed by his physician. The findings indicated severe stomach problems, confirming some suspicions but leaving many questions unanswered. However, the autopsy did not confirm the poisoning theory, leading to ongoing debates about his true cause of death and what possibilities could explain his demise. And why is this still a topic of speculation? The political atmosphere in Europe played a crucial role in Napoleon's fate. Many nations sought to remove him from power permanently, fearing his return. His exile was heavily influenced by the political leaders of the time, including his enemies who rallied against him. Understanding the political context helps frame his actions and decisions. Were there unseen forces working against him, manipulating events to ensure his downfall? Napoleon's death left a significant impact on France and Europe. Many viewed him as a martyr for his ambitious ideals, a leader who dared to challenge the status quo. His legacy continues to spark debate about his contributions and flaws, with some celebrating his reforms while others criticize his methods. This complex legacy makes him one of history's most studied figures. How does history remember him today, and how have perceptions shifted over time? His life in exile was marked by isolation and reflection, a stark contrast to his previous life of power and influence. He wrote memoirs and engaged with visitors about his life, offering insights into his thoughts during this period. These interactions reveal a different side of his personality, one that reflects on his past choices and their consequences. What insights can we gain from his final reflections, and how do they challenge the typical narratives of a fallen leader? Many works of art depict his life, battles, and eventual death, from paintings to literature. This cultural portrayal often romanticizes his story, shaping public perception and influencing how history remembers him. Analyzing these influences reveals the power of narrative in history and how art can impact our understanding of significant figures. What stories are we telling about him today, and how do they affect our view of his legacy? Opinions on Napoleon vary widely based on historical perspective, with some seeing him as a revolutionary leader, while others label him a tyrant. This debate continues to resonate in discussions about power and leadership, prompting individuals to reconsider their views on authority and governance. Understanding these contrasting views allows for a deeper analysis of his impact on history. Where do you stand in this ongoing debate, and what influences your perspective? His last words have sparked numerous interpretations and stories, often reflecting his thoughts about power and legacy. The mystery surrounding his final moments adds to his enigmatic persona and has led to various claims about what he truly believed in his last days. Unraveling these words gives insight into his mindset during his final moments. What significance do these final words hold, and how do they reflect his true character? Napoleon's relationships with his family greatly influenced his decisions throughout his life. His son, the King of Rome, faced immense pressure to uphold the legacy that Napoleon had built. Family ties played a significant role in the political landscape, impacting decisions that affected nations. Understanding these dynamics provides a personal dimension to his story. How did family expectations shape his decisions, and what legacies did they leave behind? Napoleon is known for revolutionizing modern warfare strategies, creating tactics that are still studied in military academies worldwide. His approach to warfare not only changed how battles were fought, but also reshaped the entire military landscape of Europe. Europe. This impact continues to shape military strategies today, raising questions about his genius and innovation. What can modern leaders learn from his approach, and how do his strategies remain relevant in contemporary discussions about military leadership? His story serves as a cautionary tale about ambition and power, showcasing the highs and lows of his remarkable life. Consequences of his decisions are relevant in today's political climate, reminding us that the pursuit of power can lead to both triumph and tragedy. This reflection encourages viewers to consider their perspectives on leadership and governance. What lessons can be applied to your own life, and how can you navigate the challenges of ambition? Many theories about Napoleon's demise persist, from poisoning to natural causes. Each theory offers a different perspective on historical events, prompting further investigation into the complexities of historical truth. This exploration invites viewers to think critically about history, questioning accepted narratives and seeking deeper understanding. Which theory do you find most convincing, and why does it resonate with you? Napoleon's remains were eventually moved to Les Invalides in Paris, a site that symbolizes his complicated relationship with France. This location has become a significant historical site, attracting thousands of visitors each year who come to pay their respects to a man who changed the course of history. Understanding his burial site adds another layer to his legacy and invites us to reflect on his life. What does this final resting place say about his life and legacy, and how do we reconcile the man with the myth? How did a man once defeated come back to power? It's a question that intrigues many. Upon returning to France, Napoleon gathered support from his loyal followers, a surprising twist for someone who had been exiled. Just days after landing back on French soil, he re-established himself as emperor, showcasing a remarkable political comeback. This swift transition sparked the 100 Days, a brief but intense period of warfare that reshaped Europe. But was he really the ambitious leader he portrayed himself to be, or were there other motivations at play? As Napoleon returned to France, the atmosphere was electric with possibility. You might think the people would be hesitant, given his recent fall from grace. Surprisingly, many saw him as a symbol of hope and strength. His supporters, including former soldiers and loyalists, rallied to his side, eager to reclaim the glory of his past rule. They viewed him as a hero who could restore France to its former greatness. This collective sentiment created a whirlwind of enthusiasm, enabling Napoleon to regain power almost overnight. Yet this dramatic return was not without its challenges. Some of his former adversaries were plotting against him, concerned about the potential resurgence of his power. Tensions mounted as the various factions within France reacted to his bold claim to the throne. This internal conflict raised the stakes for Napoleon. Was he prepared to face the consequences of his audacious comeback, or would he find himself in a precarious position once again? The 100 Days marked a pivotal chapter in European history. As Napoleon re-established himself as emperor, he faced the immediate task of securing his position. This led to a series of military maneuvers and diplomatic negotiations that revealed his strategic brilliance. However, these actions also drew the ire of other nations, who feared the return of a man known for his military conquests. This fear prompted a coalition of nations to unite against him, setting the stage for a dramatic clash that would ultimately determine his fate. But what motivated Napoleon during this tumultuous time? Many historians argue that his return was fueled by a desire for redemption. After being exiled to Elba, a relatively comfortable but politically insignificant island, he craved the power and influence he once wielded. His decision to return was a calculated gamble, reflecting both his ambition and his belief that he could still shape the future of France and Europe. Yet the question remains, was this drive for power rooted in genuine leadership or personal ego? As the conflict escalated, the stage was set for the infamous Battle of Waterloo. This battle was more than just a clash of armies. It was a dramatic showdown between ideals and reality. On one side stood Napoleon, a man fueled by the desire to reclaim his empire. On the other were the forces of the Seventh Coalition, led by the Duke of Wellington and other European leaders determined to put an end to his reign. The outcome of this battle would not only determine Napoleon's fate, but also reshape the future of Europe itself. The battle unfolded with intense fervor and strategic complexity. Napoleon's military tactics were put to the test against a united front of formidable opponents. As cannons roared and soldiers clashed, the fate of nations hung in the balance. Despite his best efforts, the battle did not go as he had envisioned. The coalition's coordination and resolve proved to be a formidable challenge, raising the stakes for Napoleon and leading to his eventual defeat. But what does this defeat reveal about Napoleon's character? Some argue that it exposes a tragic flaw in his ambition, his inability to adapt to the changing political landscape. Others suggest that it was a testament to his relentless pursuit of greatness, even in the face of overwhelming odds. Regardless of perspective, the Battle of Waterloo stands as a crucial moment in history, marking the end of an era defined by Napoleon's larger-than-life persona. As he faced defeat, many began to wonder about the state of his health. Did Napoleon's declining condition play a role in his downfall? Historians suggest that during his later years, Napoleon struggled with various health problems, some of which may have impacted his leadership. Reports of stomach issues and other ailments circulated, raising questions about his physical and mental readiness to lead during critical moments. This interplay between health and leadership adds another layer to the complex narrative of his final days. While Napoleon's health issues were well documented, documented. Some theories have taken a more dramatic turn. Was he poisoned as part of a conspiracy? A theory has emerged suggesting that his food might have been laced with arsenic, adding an intriguing twist to the story of his demise. This theory raises further questions about the nature of his death, intertwining politics, personal vendettas, and the enigmatic figure that was Napoleon Bonaparte. Could there be truth to these shocking claims that complicate the narrative of his death? After his death in 1821, an autopsy was performed by his physician, revealing severe stomach problems. However, this examination did not confirm the poisoning theory, leading to ongoing debates about his true cause of death. What other possibilities could explain his demise? The unresolved nature of these inquiries leaves a lingering mystery, prompting historians and enthusiasts alike to ponder the complexities surrounding the end of his remarkable life. As we delve deeper into the narrative of Napoleon's final years, it becomes evident that the political climate played a crucial role in shaping his fate. The politics of Europe during this period were tumultuous, with nations united in their desire to prevent Napoleon's return to power. Many sought to remove him from the political landscape permanently, driven by a mix of fear and ambition. This backdrop provides essential context to understanding the factors that led to his eventual downfall. Napoleon's legacy is also deeply intertwined with the politics of his time. How does history remember him today? The answer to this question is as complex as the man himself, revealing the layers of ambition, power, and consequence that define his legacy. As we explore the nuances of Napoleon's character, we uncover insights from his life in exile. His time on Saint Helena was marked by isolation and reflection, a stark contrast to the power he once held. During this period, he engaged with visitors and wrote memoirs, revealing a different side of his personality. These interactions challenge the typical narratives of a fallen leader and offer a glimpse into his thoughts as he confronted his legacy. What insights can we gain from his final reflections, and how do they challenge our understanding of his character? In examining the cultural impact of his demise, we find that art and literature have played significant roles in shaping public perception. Many works depict his life, battles, and eventual death, often romanticizing his story. This cultural portrayal influences how history remembers him and highlights the power of narrative in our understanding of significant figures. What stories are we telling about him today, and how do they affect our view of his legacy? The debate surrounding Napoleon's legacy is ongoing, with opinions varying widely based on historical perspective. Some see him as a revolutionary leader who championed progress, while others view him as a tyrant who sought power at any cost. This complex debate continues to resonate in discussions about leadership and governance. Where do you stand in this ongoing debate? Your perspective can contribute to the larger conversation about the implications of his rule. In his final moments, Napoleon's words have sparked numerous interpretations and stories. These last words reflect his thoughts about power and legacy, adding to the enigma that surrounds him. Unraveling these words offers insight into his mindset during his final days and helps us understand what he truly valued. What significance do these final words hold, and how do they reflect his true character? As we consider the role of family in shaping his legacy, it becomes evident that his relationships influenced his decisions throughout his life. His son, the King of Rome, faced immense pressure to uphold the legacy that Napoleon had built. Family dynamics played a crucial role in the political landscape, impacting decisions that affected nations. How did family expectations shape his decisions, and what legacies did they leave behind? Napoleon's military strategies have left an indelible mark on warfare. He is known for revolutionizing tactics that are studied in military academies worldwide. His approach changed how battles were fought and reshaped the military landscape of Europe. What can modern leaders learn from his approach, and how do his strategies remain relevant in contemporary discussions about military leadership? As we reflect on Napoleon's rise and fall, we encounter a cautionary tale about ambition and power. His story showcases the highs and lows of his remarkable life, with consequences that resonate in today's political climate. Understanding this narrative can help you navigate modern challenges. What lessons can be applied to your own life, and how can you learn from his experiences? The alternate theories surrounding Napoleon's death invite us to think critically about history. Many theories persist, from poisoning to natural causes, each offering a different perspective on historical events. Investigating these theories reveals the complexities of historical truth and encourages deeper exploration of accepted narratives. Which theory do you find most convincing, and why does it resonate with you? Finally, we arrive at the site of Napoleon's final resting place. His remains were moved to Les Invalides in Paris, a location that symbolizes his complicated relationship with France. This site attracts thousands of visitors each year, eager to pay their respects to a man who changed the course of history. Understanding his burial site adds another layer to his legacy and invites us to reflect on his life. What does this final resting place say about his life and legacy, and how do we reconcile the man with the myth? What led to Napoleon's ultimate downfall at the Battle of Waterloo? This pivotal moment in European history reshaped the continent forever. Most people think the battle was just another military engagement, but the reality is much more intricate. Fought on June 18, 1815, Waterloo marked the climax climax of Napoleon's dramatic return to power after his exile on Elba. It wasn't just about one man's ambitions. It was a confrontation between ideals and reality, a struggle between the old order and a new vision for Europe. As the sun rose over the battlefield, the stakes were incredibly high. Napoleon, confident in his military prowess, faced the Seventh Coalition, a formidable alliance that included Great Britain, Prussia, and other nations determined to end his reign once and for all. This coalition was no accident. It was born from fear and the desire to prevent a repeat of the chaos he had unleashed in Europe. The tension in the air was palpable, with both sides aware that this battle would determine the future of the continent. Napoleon's strategy was daring and ambitious, aimed at catching the enemy off guard. He believed that by separating the British and Prussian forces, he could dismantle their unity and achieve victory. But as the day progressed, it became clear that his plans were not going as anticipated. The unpredictable weather and the challenging terrain played tricks on his carefully laid strategies. A rain had turned the battlefield into a quagmire, hindering the movement of his troops and artillery. This element of chaos was the first crack in his seemingly solid foundation. As the battle commenced, the fierce clashes between troops echoed across the fields. One striking moment was when the French cavalry charged, hoping to break through the British lines. But instead of a rout, they encountered fierce resistance led by the steadfast Duke of Wellington. This unexpected counterattack highlighted a crucial turning point. The resolve of the coalition forces was stronger than Napoleon had anticipated. The once feared emperor began to realize that the tide was turning against him. As the day wore on, another significant factor came into play: the arrival of the Prussian army, led by General Gebhard Leberecht von Blücher. Napoleon's hope of defeating the British before the Prussians could join the fight was slipping away. The Prussians coordinated with Wellington's forces, creating a united front against Napoleon. It was a classic example of how the enemy's ability to work together can counter even the most brilliant strategies. This unexpected reinforcement proved to be the catalyst for Napoleon's downfall, turning the battle into a true coalition effort against his once mighty empire. The climax of the battle came in the late afternoon when Napoleon ordered his Imperial Guard, the elite troops of his army, to launch a final assault. This was a desperate gamble, as he believed they would secure a decisive victory. However, instead of striking fear into the hearts of the coalition forces, the Guard met fierce resistance. The British troops, emboldened by the sight of their comrades rallying alongside the Prussians, held their ground. It was a moment of defiance that shattered Napoleon's dreams of reclaiming his empire. His legendary Imperial Guard, once viewed as an unstoppable force, faltered and began to retreat. In the aftermath of Waterloo, the consequences were dire for Napoleon. He had not only lost a battle, but had also lost his empire. The defeat marked the end of his rule and ambitions, leading to his second abdication and eventual exile to Saint Helena. Many people think his downfall was solely due to military failure, but the reality is more profound. Waterloo represented a culmination of strategic miscalculations, underestimations of his enemies, and the powerful alliance of nations that had united against him. This was not just a battle. It was a defining moment that reshaped the map of Europe and the future of global politics. How did this single battle change the course of history? The implications of Waterloo extended far beyond the immediate defeat of Napoleon. It led to the establishment of a new balance of power in Europe, with the Congress of Vienna redrawing borders and reshaping alliances. This moment in history serves as a powerful reminder of how the outcome of a single event can have lasting effects on nations and societies. The fear of another tyrant rising to power resulted in a period of relative stability in Europe, known as the Concert of Europe, which aimed to maintain peace through cooperation and diplomacy. Yet even today, Napoleon's legacy remains controversial. Many view him as a military genius, while others see him as a tyrant who sought to dominate Europe. His defeat at Waterloo has become a symbol of hubris, illustrating the dangers of overreaching ambition. As we reflect on this monumental event, we are left to ponder the complexities of leadership and the fine line between success and failure. The lessons of Waterloo continue to resonate, reminding us that history is shaped by the choices of individuals and the unpredictable nature of human ambition. Did Napoleon's health play a role in his demise? It's a question that intrigues many. Most people think he died due to the consequences of his time in exile, but the reality is far more nuanced. After his dramatic fall from power, Napoleon faced a host of health issues that clouded the last years of his life on Saint Helena, an isolated island in the South Atlantic. Understanding these health problems provides insight into the challenges he encountered during his final days. Napoleon's health began to decline long before his exile. While he was still in power, he struggled with various ailments. He reportedly suffered from chronic stomach pain and digestive issues, which were often dismissed at the time. Many historians speculate that his health problems were exacerbated by the stress of leading an empire and the immense pressures of warfare. Imagine leading a nation at war while battling physical discomfort. It's a scenario that adds layers to our understanding of his character. As Napoleon settled into life on Saint Helena, his health took a significant turn for the worse. He was known to have bouts of fatigue and lethargy, which were troubling signs for a man once known for his vigor and energy. One rare fact is that while in exile, he wrote extensively about his life and ambitions, yet these writings reflect a man increasingly aware of his deteriorating condition. His memoirs reveal a fascinating paradox. A brilliant strategist exist, trapped in a body that was failing him. Some historians suggest that he may have been suffering from stomach cancer. This theory is based on accounts of his symptoms, which included weight loss, severe abdominal pain, and other digestive issues. However, medical knowledge at the time was limited, making it difficult for anyone to accurately diagnose him. This raises an interesting point. How often do we overlook the health issues of leaders, focusing instead on their political maneuvers? There's a controversial belief that Napoleon's ailments were a result of the psychological stress he endured. His self-image as a powerful leader clashed with the reality of his exile. Many argue that the mental strain of losing everything he had fought for manifested as physical ailments. This view pushes viewers to consider how deeply intertwined our mental and physical health can be, particularly for those in high-pressure roles. Another compelling theory is that his health declined due to the unsanitary conditions on Saint Helena. The island had limited resources, and the living conditions were far from ideal. Napoleon's residence, Longwood, was damp and poorly constructed, leading to further deterioration of his health. Imagine living in a place that amplifies your ailments while trying to adjust to a life of confinement and reflection. This environment undoubtedly contributed to his failing health. Despite the physical challenges he faced, Napoleon maintained a certain level of resilience. His determination to remain active and engaged during his exile is noteworthy. He often welcomed visitors, engaged in discussions about politics and military strategy, and even attempted to dictate his memoirs. Yet, as time went on, these efforts became increasingly overshadowed by his health struggles. As his health continued to decline, there were moments of lucidity mixed with despair. He would reminisce about his past victories, expressing a longing for the days when he was in command. In those reflective moments, we see a man grappling with his legacy, fighting against the inevitability of his fate. This aspect of his character invites viewers to consider how leaders deal with the weight of their past, especially when confronted with the reality of their current situation. So, what exactly were these health issues? They included a combination of psychological stress, potential cancer, and the impact of living conditions on Saint Helena. While some historians lean towards one explanation over the others, the truth is likely a blend of all these factors. This complex interplay of physical and mental health challenges invites viewers to think critically about the nature of leadership and the human experience. In conclusion, Napoleon's health issues played a crucial role in shaping the latter part of his life. The former emperor, once a symbol of power and ambition, faced a slow decline that reflected not only his physical ailments, but also his mental and emotional state. His story encourages us to look beyond the surface, understanding the many forces that can impact a leader's life and legacy. As we continue to explore the multifaceted nature of Napoleon Bonaparte, we uncover not just the tale of a military genius, but a deeply human story of struggle and resilience against overwhelming odds. Could Napoleon have been poisoned as part of a conspiracy? This question opens a door to a world of intrigue and speculation surrounding the death of one of history's most enigmatic figures. While most people believe he succumbed to the ailments of old age, the reality is much more complex and filled with unsettling possibilities. Several theories suggest that Napoleon's death was not merely the result of natural causes, but potentially the outcome of a calculated plan to eliminate him. The idea that Napoleon might have been poisoned adds a chilling twist to his story. Many historians point to the fact that his health declined sharply during his exile on Saint Helena, raising questions about the quality of his food and the possibility of foul play. What's more, a strange fact that may shock you is that some of his meals were prepared by cooks who may have had political motivations, especially since many enemies sought to undermine him even from a distance. The question lingers: was he truly safe in exile, or was danger lurking just beneath the surface? Some historians have proposed that Napoleon's food was laced with arsenic, a toxic substance that was all too accessible in the 19th century. This theory gained traction after analysis of hair samples taken from his remains indicated elevated levels of arsenic. However, this raises a controversial point. Could the arsenic have come from the environment rather than intentional poisoning? Perhaps it was simply a consequence of the local water supply, which was known to be contaminated. This ambiguity invites viewers to consider how evidence can be interpreted in multiple ways. Another layer of intrigue comes from Napoleon's own writings. In his later years, he expressed fears of being poisoned, which can be seen as both paranoia and a genuine concern. How often do leaders suspect those around them? Napoleon's intense scrutiny of his environment illustrates a mind burdened by the weight of betrayal, even among his closest allies. This sentiment adds depth to his character. He was a brilliant strategist, but also a man trapped in a web of conspiracy and uncertainty. Many people are surprised to learn that there were other historical figures who faced similar fates. For instance, the Roman Emperor Claudius is thought to have been poisoned by his own wife, while political intrigue was also a driving force in the deaths of figures like Julius Caesar. This pattern throughout history highlights how power struggles often lead to deadly consequences. In Napoleon's case, his power was stripped away, leaving him vulnerable. Did this vulnerability invite others to take drastic measures? Despite the theory surrounding his poisoning, there remains the question of whether the idea of assassination was simply a product of the times. The 19th century was rife with political machinations, and the fear of betrayal was ever present. Imagine living in a world where your very existence was threatened by those who once called you friend. The political political landscape of Europe during Napoleon's exile was tumultuous, with many factions vying for power, making him an easy target for conspiracy. Some historians argue that even if Napoleon was not poisoned, the very notion reflects the extent of his legacy. The idea that someone would go to such lengths to eliminate him underscores his significance in history. It reveals how deeply his actions resonated across Europe, prompting fear and admiration in equal measure. This duality prompts viewers to question, how do leaders become such powerful symbols that they incite both loyalty and animosity? As we analyze the evidence, it's crucial to consider the impact of Napoleon's health during his time on Saint Helena. While some believe he may have suffered from stomach cancer, this diagnosis doesn't negate the theories surrounding poison. The symptoms he exhibited can be consistent with both ailments, creating a haze of uncertainty. Did the health problems weaken him enough to make him susceptible to external threats? What about the autopsy performed after his death? Initial reports indicated severe stomach problems, which led some to believe that he could have been a victim of cancer. However, the autopsy did not support the poisoning theory conclusively, leaving an open-ended discussion among historians. How do we sift through the medical evidence when the political context surrounding Napoleon's life and death is so fraught with conspiracy? This enigmatic legacy continues to fuel debates among scholars and enthusiasts alike. Each theory adds another layer to the complex narrative of a man who rose to power, fell from grace, and died under mysterious circumstances. It begs the question, how much of history is dictated by the narratives we create, and how much is rooted in concrete evidence? Ultimately, the idea of Napoleon being poisoned serves as a gripping lens through which to examine his life and death. Whether or not he was intentionally harmed, the notion encapsulates the intrigue surrounding his story. It reminds us that history is rarely straightforward, often painted with shades of gray that invite us to question our understanding of the past. As we conclude this exploration, keep in mind that while theories abound, the truth may remain elusive. The complexities of Napoleon's demise reveal not just the fate of a single man, but the broader implications of power, politics, and betrayal that resonate throughout history. What we uncover about him can influence how we view leaders and their legacies even today. What did the autopsy reveal about Napoleon's death? This pivotal question takes us deeper into the mystery surrounding one of history's most fascinating figures. Many believe that autopsies reveal definitive truths, but in Napoleon's case, it led to more questions than answers. After his death on May 5, 1821, Napoleon's body was examined by his personal physician, Dr. Francesco Antamarchi. The autopsy took place on the remote island of Saint Helena, where he had been exiled. The findings indicated severe stomach problems, including ulcers, and a notably enlarged liver. This revelation might seem straightforward, but the implications are anything but. Many historians now debate whether these findings were manipulated or misinterpreted to fit a narrative. The very fact that the autopsy did not confirm poisoning led to skepticism. Was this simply a case of poor medical understanding at the time? A strange fact to consider is that Napoleon's condition was not uncommon among those who lived in exile or experienced high stress. He was under constant pressure, isolation, and perhaps more significantly, the weight of his own legacy. Some claim that Napoleon suffered from stomach cancer, a diagnosis that has fueled conspiracy theories regarding his death. But could he have been misdiagnosed? The symptoms of ulcers can mirror those of cancer, making it difficult for even seasoned physicians to ascertain the true cause. The controversial point here is that some believe his health was deteriorating due to the harsh conditions of his exile, while others argue that his lifestyle choices contributed significantly to his decline. Digging deeper, we find that Napoleon's final years were plagued by health issues that modern medicine still struggles to define. He reportedly experienced a variety of ailments, including rheumatism and respiratory problems. The question remains, could his ill health have affected his mental state and decision-making? Napoleon was a man known for his strategic mind, and yet, in his later years, there were reports of erratic behavior and paranoia, symptoms often associated with declining health. When we look at the context of the autopsy, it's essential to consider the role of politics in shaping historical narratives. Napoleon was a controversial figure, and any findings about his death would be scrutinized through a political lens. What did the British authorities want to suppress or promote regarding his demise? Napoleon was a symbol of defiance against the established order, and his death could be manipulated to serve various political agendas. Interestingly, the autopsy did reveal that Napoleon had a scar on his stomach from previous surgery. This fact is rarely discussed but raises more questions about his medical history. What had he endured before his exile? The layers of his story become more complex with each revelation. How much of his suffering was due to his past as a military leader? This scar can symbolize not just his physical battles, but the psychological scars of a man who had once commanded an empire and now faced the end of his life in isolation. One of the most debated aspects of the autopsy findings is the absence of conclusive evidence regarding arsenic poisoning, a theory that some still believe today. Hair samples taken from Napoleon after his death showed high levels of arsenic, leading to widespread speculation. This controversy leads to the question, could he have been poisoned over time, with arsenic accumulating in his system? The idea of slow poisoning adds another layer of intrigue, reflecting the fears of a leader who had so many enemies, both politically and personally. quickly. Additionally, the autopsy findings have prompted various theories about how and why Napoleon died. Did he die as a result of his poor health, or was there a conspiracy to rid Europe of a powerful figure? The autopsy failed to provide a definitive answer, instead leaving us with a myriad of possibilities. This ambiguity invites us to explore the broader implications of Napoleon's life and death, considering how our understanding of historical figures can be influenced by the narratives we create. As we navigate through these layers of history, we must also address the medical practices of the time. Autopsies were not as rigorously conducted as they are today, and the limitations of 19th century medicine must be taken into account. There was little understanding of diseases, which makes the interpretations of symptoms more complex. What seemed like a clear case of health issues could have been a combination of factors, including stress, diet, and living conditions. In examining the autopsy, we also encounter a fascinating intersection of history and medicine. What insights can we gain about health and wellness by looking at historical figures like Napoleon? His life teaches us valuable lessons about the impact of stress, isolation, and health on decision-making. It also opens up a discussion about how we treat leaders and the weight of expectation they bear. The unresolved mysteries surrounding Napoleon's autopsy continue to captivate historians and the public alike. The lingering questions about his death underscore the complexities of his life. They challenge us to think critically about how we construct historical narratives. What does it mean to leave a legacy when the details of your end are shrouded in mystery? As we wrap up this exploration of Napoleon's autopsy and its implications, remember that the story of his death is not merely a tale of one man. It reflects the broader themes of power, health, and legacy. It reminds us that history is often not as clear-cut as we might hope, filled with ambiguity and speculation. This reflection invites us to ponder our understanding of figures who shaped our world, leaving us with more questions than answers. How does this influence your perception of leadership and the stories we tell about those who wield power? The political atmosphere in Europe during Napoleon's time was not merely a backdrop. It was a dynamic force that significantly shaped his fate. At the height of his power, he was not just a leader, he was a lightning rod for political tensions across the continent. This leads us to an intriguing question. Were there unseen forces working against him that contributed to his downfall? To understand Napoleon's fate, we must first consider the political landscape of Europe in the early 19th century. After his rise to power, many nations saw him not just as a ruler, but as a threat to their own sovereignty and stability. The idea of a dominant France under Napoleon made several countries uneasy. Did you know that by the time of his first abdication in 1814, a coalition of no fewer than 6 countries had united against him? It's a little-known fact that this coalition included the likes of Russia, Prussia, Austria, and the United Kingdom, all collaborating in an unprecedented manner to counter a single leader's ambitions. The immediate cause of his initial downfall was the disastrous invasion of Russia in 1812. Most people think that a great general like Napoleon would be invincible, but the reality is that even the most formidable leaders can be brought low by hubris and overreach. The campaign not only devastated his army, but it also emboldened his enemies. The Russians, having faced him and survived, became determined to rid Europe of his influence. The retreat from Moscow was a turning point, demonstrating how quickly fortunes can change in warfare. The snow, the starvation, and the fierce Russian resistance all contributed to an utter collapse of what was once the greatest military force in Europe. But the political repercussions were just beginning. The nations that had been hesitant to confront Napoleon were now invigorated by his failure. Following the Russian campaign, Austria, Prussia, and Britain united to form the Sixth Coalition. This coalition was not simply a military alliance. It represented a broader political and ideological movement against Napoleon's imperialism. France had come to symbolize not just a nation, but a movement, a shift towards nationalism that threatened the traditional monarchies of Europe. Napoleon's second abdication in 1815 came after his brief return to power during the 100 Days. The idea that a leader could rise again after having been defeated shocked many European leaders. It forced them to confront not only Napoleon as a military leader, but also the ideas of revolution and nationalism that he embodied. The political stakes were high, and the response was swift. At the Battle of Waterloo, he faced a coalition army once more, led by the Duke of Wellington and Prussian Field Marshal Gebhard Leberecht von Blücher. Did you know that the Duke of Wellington famously said that the battle was won on the playing fields of Eton? This comment underscores how education and upbringing influenced the future leaders of Europe. The defeat at Waterloo marked the end of the Napoleonic Wars and the beginning of a new political order in Europe. The Congress of Vienna, which convened shortly after his defeat, sought to restore the balance of power and ensure that no single leader could rise to such dominance again. It's fascinating to consider how a single battle could reshape an entire continent's political landscape. Historians often debate whether the Congress was a genuine effort to achieve peace or a power grab by the elite. This debate leads to a controversial perspective. Some argue that Napoleon's downfall was orchestrated by the very monarchs he sought to undermine. What might be overlooked in this political narrative is the personal animosity many leaders felt towards Napoleon. It wasn't merely about territory or power. It was deeply personal for many, with former allies turning against him. The betrayal and shifting allegiances can make one question: were the alliances forged out of necessity, or was there a deeper desire to see Napoleon humble? The politics of his time were fraught with betrayal and intrigue, not unlike a high-stakes game of chess where every piece had a role and a backstory. His continental system, designed to weaken Britain economically, ended up straining relationships with other nations, particularly in Central Europe. The economic hardships it imposed led to resentment and played a crucial role in the formation of the coalitions against him. Many countries, initially fearful of Napoleon's might, began to see him as a tyrant. The irony is that in seeking to consolidate power, he unwittingly sowed the seeds of his downfall. This political context is critical to understanding not only Napoleon's fate, but also how history views him today. His story becomes a cautionary tale about the limits of ambition and the complexities of leadership. Each alliance formed against him was a reflection of the fears and aspirations of nations at that time, highlighting the intricate web of diplomacy, strategy, and betrayal. As we continue to unpack the political forces that shaped Napoleon's downfall, we can see how history often repeats itself. The alliances formed in the face of tyranny remind us that the fight for sovereignty and independence is timeless. Today, leaders must navigate similar waters, often influenced by past events and the lessons they impart. Napoleon's story is one of triumph and tragedy, shaped not only by his actions, but also by the responses of those around him. This blend of personal ambition and external pressures makes his life a rich tapestry of political maneuvering, illustrating the fragility of power and the enduring impact of history. What does this say about the leaders we encounter today? The more things change, the more they remain the same. In exploring the political atmosphere that contributed to Napoleon's fate, we uncover not just a story of a man, but of nations and their intertwined destinies. The unseen forces working against him reveal the complexities of history, challenging us to reflect on the narratives we accept and the truths we uncover. Understanding this rich political landscape is vital to grasping the full scope of Napoleon's life and the legacy he left behind. The death of Napoleon Bonaparte is often romanticized or simplified in historical narratives, but the reality is far more complex and impactful. How did his passing reshape not just France, but the entirety of Europe? Did you know that his death, which many thought signified the end of his influence, actually catalyzed a significant shift in how he was perceived? As Napoleon died in exile on Saint Helena in 1821, a storm of emotions and political implications surrounded his passing. Many people viewed him as a martyr, a tragic figure who had been wronged by the very nations he sought to dominate. His life story became a symbol of the struggle between ambition and its consequences. The legacy he left behind was far more complicated than the narrative of a tyrant or a hero. It sparked endless debates among historians and lay people alike about the nature of power and leadership. The notion that Napoleon was merely a power-hungry dictator fails to capture the nuance of his impact on European history. Consider this: after his death, many of his former enemies began to reassess their views of him. What they once deemed tyranny, some started to see as a fight for a new order, a battle against the antiquated feudal systems that dominated Europe at the time. This shift in perception led many to regard him as a revolutionary figure who, despite his authoritarian regime, helped to ignite the ideas of nationalism and liberalism across the continent. His passing also prompted a reflection on the Napoleonic Code, which established legal reforms that influenced many modern legal systems. Countries began to adopt principles of meritocracy and civil rights, and they had Napoleon to thank for pushing those boundaries down. While he may not have envisioned himself as a martyr for liberty, his actions catalyzed movements that would redefine nations. Napoleon's funeral became a spectacle of its own, almost as grand as his life. Initially buried in a simple grave, his remains were eventually relocated to Les Invalides in Paris, a final resting place that now attracts millions of visitors each year. The transformation of his burial site reflects the changing narrative surrounding his legacy. Once viewed as an outcast, he is now celebrated as one of the most significant figures in European history. Controversially, some historians argue that Napoleon's death was the perfect opportunity for his enemies to rewrite history. By framing him as a martyr rather than a conqueror, they could establish a narrative that justified their own actions against him. It's an intriguing thought. Was his death manipulated for political gain? Yet, as we delve deeper into how Napoleon's death shaped his legacy, we must also confront the less flattering aspects. Not everyone viewed him positively. Many continued to see him as a threat to peace and stability, embodying the chaos that could emerge from unchecked ambition. This duality, admired by some and despised by others, adds layers to his historical persona. A lesser-known fact is that Napoleon's passing also inspired a wealth of literature and art, contributing to his mythic status. Writers, poets, and artists began to romanticize his life, turning him into a figure larger than life. This cultural portrayal impacted how subsequent generations understood and internalized his story. But the question remains, how does history remember Napoleon today? Is he a tyrant, a revolutionary, or a tragic hero? Each perspective offers a different lens through which we can view power, ambition, and the consequences of leadership. As we examine the repercussions of his death, we must ask ourselves what we can learn from his life and legacy. His story serves as a cautionary tale about the thin line between power and downfall. The political and social climate he navigated serves as a reminder that even the most formidable leaders must contend with forces beyond their control. In conclusion, Napoleon's death marked the beginning of a new chapter in European history, one that reflected on the ideals he championed and the realities he created. His legacy is a tapestry woven from triumph and tragedy, ambition and defeat. Understanding this complexity allows us to engage with the nuances of leadership and the legacies that leaders leave behind. As we continue to reflect on the implications of his death, we uncover deeper truths about our own perceptions of power and authority, encouraging us to think critically about the narratives we accept and the figures we celebrate. This examination not only helps us appreciate the past, but also prepares us for the future, reminding us that the stories of our leaders continue to shape our world. The real question that remains is this: in the end, how will we remember our leaders, and what legacy will we choose to leave for those who come after us? As one of history's most formidable leaders, you might assume he faced his final moments with the same vigor and ambition he exhibited throughout his life. But did you know that the final chapter of his story was filled with profound reflection and surprising insight? As Napoleon settled into his exile on the remote island, he found himself grappling not only with his health but also with the weight of his legacy. Imagine a once mighty emperor, now isolated, contemplating his life's achievements and failures. The reality of his situation offered a stark contrast to the grand ambitions that had once driven him. Many of his contemporaries believed he would continue to scheme and plot, but instead he turned to writing and introspection. His time on Saint Helena was marked by a rigorous routine. Each day began early, with Napoleon often engaging in long walks around the island, reflecting on the battles he had fought and the power he had once wielded. While many think of him as a cold strategist, here, in his solitude, he began to reveal a more personal side, one filled with regrets, hopes, and the understanding that history might not judge him as he wished. An interesting fact to note is that during these last years, Napoleon began dictating his memoirs. These writings would later become a crucial part of how he was remembered. It's fascinating to think about how a man who once ruled vast territories now sought to shape his legacy through the written word. His reflections painted a picture not just of a ruler, but of a complex man struggling to come to terms with his identity and the consequences of his actions. One striking insight from his writings is the way he perceived leadership. He noted, "A soldier will fight long and hard for a bit of colored ribbon." This statement reveals the deep understanding he had of motivation and power dynamics. However, it also begs the question, did he truly see the value of leadership only in terms of personal gain, or was there a deeper realization about the sacrifices required for true greatness? During his time on Saint Helena, Napoleon engaged with various visitors, including military officers, politicians, and admirers. These interactions provided him with a platform to discuss his views on war, politics, and society. It's intriguing to consider how these conversations might have influenced his perception of history. Did he see himself as a hero or a villain? Many of his visitors left with tales of his charisma and intellect, yet they also noted the melancholy that seemed to envelop him. Instead, he took the opportunity to reflect on the ideals of the French Revolution, which had initially inspired his rise to power. It was during these discussions that he expressed his belief in liberty, equality, and fraternity, albeit with a sense of irony given his own autocratic rule. The controversial point that emerged from his reflections is the idea that he viewed himself as a necessary evil. Some might argue that his actions, while tyrannical, were justified in the pursuit of stability in a rapidly changing world. This perspective is bound to spark debate among historians and enthusiasts alike. Was Napoleon's quest for power a destructive force, or was he merely a product of his time, acting as a catalyst for change? One rare insight that many may not know is that Napoleon had a deep interest in the sciences. He often surrounded himself with scholars and scientists, promoting advancements in various fields. His engagement with scientific thought adds another layer to his character, highlighting that he was not just a military leader, but also a thinker who sought to understand the world around him. As his health continued to decline, Napoleon became increasingly aware of the mortality that awaited him. This realization shaped his final thoughts and discussions. Interestingly, he often spoke of his desire for a grand return to France and a final showdown with his enemies. Did this desire stem from genuine ambition, or was it an echo of his past glories? In the weeks leading to his death, Napoleon's reflections deepened. He spoke often of his family, particularly his son, the King of Rome, expressing a desire for his legacy to live on through him. This paternal instinct adds a poignant layer to his story, revealing a man who, despite his ambitions, harbored a deep-seated wish for familial connection and continuity. And when he finally passed away on May 5, 1821, his death left a profound impact on Europe and the world. How he was remembered shifted dramatically in the wake of his passing. Many began to view him as a tragic figure, an outcast who dared to dream big in a world that ultimately rejected him. In some, Napoleon's last days were not merely an end, but a continuation of his complex narrative. His reflections on leadership, power, and legacy encourage us to ponder our own views on ambition and sacrifice. As we delve deeper into the intricacies of his character, we are reminded that history often remembers leaders not just for their victories, but for the humanity they display in their final moments. In closing, Napoleon Bonaparte's time on Saint Helena is a powerful reminder that every leader's story story has multiple layers. The end of one chapter can often lead to the most significant insights about power, legacy, and the human condition. So as we consider his life, let us also think about the lessons we can learn from his reflections, lessons that remain relevant in our own lives today. Many works of art and literature have sought to capture the essence of Napoleon Bonaparte, not just as a historical figure, but as a complex individual whose life story elicits strong emotions and varying interpretations. What is it about his demise that has inspired so many creators to weave their narratives around him? Was he a tragic hero, a tyrant, or a misunderstood genius? These questions have fueled the cultural portrayal of Napoleon, and they continue to spark debates today. Art has long played a pivotal role in shaping public perception. From grand paintings depicting his military victories to sculptures commemorating his legacy, the visual representation of Napoleon often emphasizes his grandeur and charisma. An intriguing example is the famous painting Napoleon Crossing the Alps by Jacques-Louis David. In this dramatic portrayal, Napoleon is depicted heroically astride a rearing horse, exuding power and control. This image was crafted not just to document a historical event, but to shape a narrative of strength and invincibility. Yet the irony lies in the fact that Napoleon had to be assisted during this crossing. The painting glosses over the reality to present a mythologized version of himself. Literature has similarly romanticized Napoleon's story. Authors have depicted him in various lights, ranging from tyrannical to noble. For instance, Victor Hugo's Les Miserables presents a nuanced perspective where Napoleon is both revered and reviled. This duality reflects the complexity of his character and the polarized opinions of his era. However, one fact that often surprises readers is how Hugo's portrayal of Napoleon was deeply influenced by his own political beliefs. Hugo, a staunch advocate for democracy, could not fully embrace a dictator, even one as fascinating as Napoleon. This cultural portrayal is not limited to the realm of literature and visual arts. Theatrical productions, films, and documentaries have all contributed to the ongoing narrative surrounding Napoleon. Consider the film Napoleon, directed by Abel Gance in 1927. It was groundbreaking for its time, employing innovative techniques like fast motion and split screens to create an epic narrative. The film's portrayal of Napoleon as a tragic hero wrestling with destiny captivated audiences and solidified his image in popular culture. Yet, it also prompted debates about the glorification of power and the cost of ambition. As we analyze these influences, we realize the power of narrative in history. The way we tell stories shapes how we remember events and figures. It raises an essential question: are we defining history, or is history defining us? The narratives surrounding Napoleon are particularly revealing. They highlight societal values and the complexities of human nature. This cultural lens allows us to reflect on our perceptions of leadership, power, and ambition. An intriguing aspect of Napoleon's portrayal is the shift in perception over time. Initially, he was seen as a revolutionary leader who brought change and progress to Europe. However, as his reign progressed, he became associated with tyranny and oppression. This transformation is captured in literature as well. Authors such as Leo Tolstoy in War and Peace depicted Napoleon as a figure of chaos, suggesting that great leaders often catalyze conflict rather than resolution. One controversial point arises when we consider whether these artistic interpretations are genuine reflections of his character or mere projections of contemporary values. For instance, many modern portrayals tend to emphasize his authoritarian tendencies, while earlier depictions often glossed over them. This raises the question of whether we can ever fully separate the man from the myth. As we delve deeper into the artistic and literary portrayals of Napoleon, we discover a range of emotions and opinions. Some works glorify him as a genius strategist, while others paint him as a tragic figure brought low by his own hubris. The complexity of these narratives speaks to the human experience, the struggle for power, the quest for legacy, and the inevitable fallibility of even the greatest leaders. Conclusion: the way art and literature have portrayed Napoleon Bonaparte reflects not just his life, but also the broader societal values and struggles of the times. As we continue to explore his legacy, we must ask ourselves, what stories are we telling about him today? Are we recognizing the multifaceted nature of his character, or are we falling into the trap of simplistic narratives? The answers to these questions hold significant implications for how we understand leadership, power, and the human condition. Ultimately, Napoleon's life and death remind us that history is not just about events, but about the stories we choose to tell. The narratives we create shape our understanding of the past and influence the future. So as we reflect on Napoleon's legacy, let us strive for a deeper understanding of the complexities that define not only him, but also ourselves. The debate surrounding Napoleon Bonaparte's legacy is as complex as the man himself. Was he a revolutionary hero who spread the ideals of the French Revolution across Europe, or was he merely a tyrant who sought personal power at any cost? This question has sparked countless discussions and analyses, revealing deep divisions in how we view leadership, ambition, and the consequences of power. Most people think of Napoleon as a dictator, but the reality is far more nuanced. To some, he is a figure who championed meritocracy, abolishing feudal privileges and implementing reforms that modernized France. In contrast, others argue that his imperial ambitions led to devastating devastating wars and the suffering of millions. This dichotomy of perspectives makes it essential to examine the various lenses through which Napoleon's legacy can be interpreted. One interesting aspect is how Napoleon's image transformed over time. Initially celebrated as a hero, he gradually became associated with tyranny. After his exile, the narrative shifted. Many began to romanticize his life, viewing him as a tragic figure who was brought down by his own hubris. In fact, a strange fact to consider is that during his rule, he often promoted art and culture, using them as tools to bolster his image. For example, he commissioned works that depicted him as a heroic figure, further embedding his narrative in the public consciousness. Controversially, some historians argue that Napoleon's reign set the stage for modern democracy. His legal reforms, including the Napoleonic Code, laid the groundwork for many legal systems across Europe and beyond. Yet, his actions also led to a concentration of power that contradicted the very ideals he claimed to support. This paradox raises significant questions about the nature of leadership. Can a leader who enacts positive reforms also be a tyrant? Another critical point of discussion is how Napoleon's military strategies changed the landscape of warfare. His methods, which focused on rapid movements and decisive engagements, revolutionized military tactics. But at what cost? His campaigns resulted in massive casualties and widespread devastation. This duality presents a challenge in assessing his impact. Did he advance military innovation, or did he perpetuate the cycle of violence? Napoleon's family also played a crucial role in shaping his legacy. His relationship with his wife, Josephine, and his son, the King of Rome, significantly influenced his decisions. Josephine's inability to provide an heir led him to seek a divorce, reflecting the personal sacrifices he made in the name of power. Interestingly, many people don't realize that Napoleon named his son as his successor, despite his complicated feelings about legacy and succession. This relationship adds another layer of complexity, illustrating how personal dynamics intertwine with public personas. In the end, the question remains, is Napoleon a hero or a villain? The answer likely lies somewhere in between. His life serves as a cautionary tale about the nature of ambition and the often blurry line between heroism. As we dissect his legacy, we must also reflect on our own perceptions of leadership, recognizing that history is not simply a collection of acts, but a tapestry woven from diverse narratives and interpretations. Understanding this complexity not only enriches our grasp of Napoleon's life, but also offers lessons applicable to contemporary discussions on power and morality. As we navigate the legacies of leaders in today's world, we must ask ourselves what defines greatness and how history remembers those who wield power. Are we willing to see beyond simplistic labels and appreciate the intricate stories that shape our understanding of the past? This exploration into Napoleon's life and legacy invites us to engage deeply with these questions, challenging us to reflect on our perspectives and values as we examine the figures who have shaped our world. Napoleon Bonaparte's final words are often shrouded in mystery and interpretation, leading many to ponder their significance. His last utterances reportedly included a mix of reflections on his life, military conquests, and the regrets he carried. Some accounts suggest he uttered the phrase, "France, the army, head of the army," indicating his undying allegiance to his country and its military even in death. Yet, as with much of Napoleon's life, these words spark debates about what they truly reveal about his mindset and legacy. Most people think his final moments were filled with despair, a recognition of his failures and losses. However, the reality might be more complex. Napoleon's last words reflect not only his thoughts about his personal circumstances, but also his enduring ambition and sense of identity as a leader. He was, after all, a man who rose from obscurity to become emperor, and even in his last days, he clung to that identity fiercely. This brings us to an intriguing point. How do we define the legacy of someone whose life was defined by ambition, power, and eventual downfall? A strange fact to consider is that Napoleon's final words were not only spoken in the context of his own demise, but were also a reflection of the historical narrative he had crafted around himself. He had built an image of a great leader who was destined for greatness, and even in death, he seemed to want to uphold that perception. His insistence on mentioning the army hints at his belief that his legacy would live on through the military reforms and conquests he enacted. Controversially, some historians argue that his last words demonstrate a disconnect between his aspirations and the harsh reality he faced. Himself as a hero, many viewed him as a tyrant whose ambition led to widespread suffering across Europe. This dichotomy raises questions about how we interpret the legacies of historical figures. Do we celebrate their achievements while acknowledging their flaws, or do we allow their darker actions to overshadow their accomplishments? As we delve deeper into the significance of Napoleon's last words, we must also consider the context in which they were spoken. His final days were spent in relative isolation on the island of Saint Helena, far from the glory of his past. The bitterness of exile may have influenced his reflections, leading to a sense of loss and longing for a time when he wielded immense power. Contrast between his earlier triumphs and his final moments adds a layer of tragedy to his narrative, prompting us to ponder how leaders cope with the weight of their legacies. Napoleon's legacy, then, becomes a complex tapestry woven from his final thoughts, his historical actions, and the perceptions of those who followed. As As we seek to understand what he truly meant in those last moments, we are reminded that history is rarely black and white. It invites us to explore the gray areas of morality, ambition, and the human experience. In conclusion, Napoleon's final words serve as a poignant reminder of the multifaceted nature of legacy. They encapsulate the tensions between triumph and tragedy, ambition and accountability. As we reflect on his life, we are challenged to consider how we define greatness and the legacies we leave behind. Ultimately, it compels us to ask ourselves, how do we wish to be remembered, and what lessons can we learn from those who have shaped history before us? Napoleon Bonaparte's relationships with his family were as complex and multifaceted as his political maneuvers. His family ties profoundly influenced his decisions and, ultimately, his legacy. To understand the depth of this influence, we must delve into the dynamics of his familial relationships, particularly with his immediate family and the broader context of his relatives. Many people assume that a leader's legacy is shaped solely by their public actions and political strategies. However, Napoleon's story reveals a different reality. The intricate web of family expectations and pressures significantly shaped his choices. His son, known as the King of Rome, faced immense pressure to uphold the legacy of his father, a burden that can be both a gift and a curse. As we explore this theme, let's consider a strange yet enlightening fact. Napoleon's family relationships were not only a source of support, but also a continual source of strife. For example, Napoleon had a particularly fraught relationship with his brother Joseph. Joseph often found himself at odds with Napoleon's ambitions and decisions. They had starkly different personalities. Where Napoleon was assertive and commanding, Joseph was more easygoing, and this tension was palpable. Illustrates a critical point. Family dynamics can be a double-edged sword, fostering both support and discord. The controversies surrounding Napoleon's family did not end with personal relationships. In fact, the power struggles within his family mirrored the political battles he faced. When he crowned himself emperor, he appointed several family members to high positions, effectively placing them in roles of power within his empire. This practice raised eyebrows and criticisms, as many viewed it as nepotism. How could a leader who sought to reshape Europe also prioritize his family's interests so openly? Another notable aspect of his family ties was the pressure on his son, the King of Rome, to follow in his father's footsteps. The boy was seen as the embodiment of Napoleon's legacy, a living reminder of the emperor's dreams for a new European order. This expectation weighed heavily on young Napoleon II, leading to a conflict between familial loyalty and personal identity. What happens when a child is burdened with the legacy of a giant? The intricate relationships didn't stop there. Napoleon's marriage to Josephine was a significant chapter in his life. Initially, their love seemed to solidify his political ambitions, but as time went on, their relationship became strained. Josephine's inability to produce an heir led to Napoleon's decision to divorce her, despite the deep affection he had for her. This decision was controversial. It shocked his supporters and redefined his image. It raises an important question. Can personal decisions in a leader's family life redefine their public legacy? These dynamics of expectation and ambition extend beyond Napoleon himself. His siblings often played crucial roles in his political strategies, as when he placed his brothers on thrones and conquered territories. This maneuver was not merely about familial loyalty. It was a strategy to consolidate power and influence. However, it often backfired, leading to resentment and rebellion. This duality serves as a reminder that even family alliances can fracture under pressure. In exploring how family expectations shaped Napoleon's decisions, we must consider the broader implications of these relationships. The complexities of family dynamics illustrate that leaders are not isolated figures. They are deeply influenced by those closest to them. As we draw our exploration of Napoleon's family ties to a close, it's essential to ask ourselves, how do familial relationships shape the legacies of leaders throughout history? Are they more than mere background influences, playing crucial roles in their rise and fall? In conclusion, Napoleon's legacy is not just a reflection of his military conquests or political strategies. It is inextricably linked to the relationships he fostered within his family. From the pressures placed on his son to the tension with his siblings, these dynamics influenced his choices, often leading to outcomes that would echo through history. Understanding this intricate web of family relationships offers a deeper insight into the man behind the legend. It encourages us to reflect on how the ties that bind can also constrain, challenge, and define the legacies we leave behind. Open loop. What did Napoleon say before he died? Did he reveal any secrets of his grand ambition or his deep regrets? As Napoleon lay on his deathbed, surrounded by his closest companions, his final words became a subject of intense speculation. Historical accounts suggest that his last utterances were filled with a mix of emotion and introspection. He famously uttered, "France, the army, head of the army, Josephine," indicating his enduring love for his homeland, his military pride, and a hint of nostalgia for his first wife, Josephine. These poignant words encapsulate the man who was both a revolutionary and an autocrat, illustrating the complexity of his legacy. Most people think that a leader's final words are a simple farewell. However, Napoleon's last words echo a life filled with ambition, conflict, and profound relationship. The reality is that these words were a microcosm of his entire life, a man who dreamed of greatness, who achieved it, and ultimately faced the consequences of his actions. The story of Napoleon's last moments is not just about the words he chose. It reflects a lifetime of choices that brought him to that secluded place on Saint Helena. Imagine the weight of all those decisions, the battles fought, the enemies made, the allies lost, all distilled into a few final phrases. How do we reconcile such a larger-than-life persona with the vulnerability of a man facing his mortality? In the hours leading up to his death on May 5, 1821, Napoleon experienced a series of complex emotions. He had already been in exile for over 5 years, grappling with his identity as both a fallen leader and a prisoner of his own making. His reflections often revolved around the essence of power and legacy. At times, he expressed regrets over the wars that cost countless lives, yet he remained resolute in his belief that he had acted in the best interests of France. A rare fact that adds depth to this narrative is that Napoleon had his physician, Dr. Francesco Antamarchi, by his side, who recorded many of these moments. Dr. Antamarchi noted how Napoleon frequently spoke of his love for his homeland, often lamenting that he would never see France again. This underscores the poignant irony of a man who once wielded unparalleled power, but ultimately found himself isolated and powerless. As we delve deeper, it becomes clear that Napoleon's last words are a reflection of his life's dichotomy. I'm returned here from restore to reshape Europe, but also a man marked by ambition and hubris. His declarations were not just personal reflections, they also serve as a commentary on the nature of power itself. How can one man hold so much sway, yet in his final moments, feel so profoundly disconnected from the world he once dominated? Controversially, some historians argue that Napoleon's legacy as a military genius is overshadowed by his flaws. Yes, while he is celebrated for his military strategies that changed the landscape of warfare, his unyielding ambition led to catastrophic consequences, including the loss of millions of lives during the Napoleonic Wars. Was he a hero of his time or a villain who brought devastation? This debate continues to fuel discussions about his legacy today. As we examine the significance of his last words, we must ask ourselves, what do they reveal about leadership, ambition, and the human experience? Napoleon's final moments remind us that even the most powerful leaders are ultimately human, grappling with the weight of their choices and the legacies they leave behind. In conclusion, Napoleon's last words encapsulate the essence of a complex individual who shaped history in profound ways. They invite us to reflect not only on his remarkable achievements, but also on the lessons learned from his extraordinary life and untimely death. As we ponder these reflections, we gain insight into what it means to aspire for greatness and the personal sacrifices that often accompany such ambitions. Ultimately, Napoleon's life and death serve as a timeless reminder that history is not just a series of events. It is a tapestry woven from the stories of individuals, each with their own dreams, regrets, and final words that echo through time. Open loop. How did his family shape Napoleon's legacy? Did their influence make him the man he was, or did it serve to complicate his story even further? Napoleon Bonaparte, a towering figure in history, was shaped not only by his own ambitions and actions, but also by the family dynamics that surrounded him. Born on the island of Corsica to a relatively modest family, he grew up with a strong sense of familial loyalty and ambition. His family played a pivotal role in his rise to power, and understanding their influence gives us deeper insight into the man behind the myth. Many people think that a leader's destiny is solely determined by their own choices. However, the reality is that family ties significantly influenced Napoleon's path. He was particularly close to his mother, Letizia, who instilled in him a fierce sense of determination and pride. This relationship would prove crucial as he navigated the treacherous waters of European politics. Despite being seen as a tyrant by some, his mother's values may have shaped his vision for a unified France. One might find it surprising that Napoleon's relationship with his family was not just one of support, but also a source of conflict. His ambitious siblings, most notably Joseph and Lucien, were often embroiled in power struggles and disagreements over their roles in his empire. This tension highlights a controversial aspect of Napoleon's leadership, his willingness to manipulate familial relationships to secure political alliances. For instance, he appointed his brother Joseph as King of Spain, a move that angered many in France and raised questions about nepotism. As Napoleon rose to power, he sought to cement his legacy through his family. He married Josephine de Beauharnais, who was instrumental in his early political ascent. However, the marriage was fraught with challenges, particularly her inability to provide an heir. In a controversial decision, he divorced her and married Marie-Louise of Austria, aiming to strengthen his political alliances. This action underscores the tension between personal desires and political necessities, a recurring theme in his life. A rare fact that adds depth to this narrative is that Napoleon's only legitimate son, Napoleon II, also known as the King of Rome, faced immense pressure to uphold his father's legacy. Despite his royal title, he spent most of his life in obscurity, a fate that raises poignant questions about what it means to carry a legacy. Would he have lived in his father's shadow forever? This complexity illustrates how family expectations can both elevate and constrain individual identity. Moreover, Napoleon's family ties extended beyond his immediate relationships. His cousins and in-laws were often embroiled in his imperial ambitions. For example, his sister Pauline was married to a general, and her influence on the court highlighted the intertwined nature of familial loyalty and political strategy. The question arises, to what extent did these relationships complicate his governance? As we reflect on Napoleon's familial connections, it becomes evident that his legacy is a tapestry woven from ambition, love, betrayal, and conflict. His family's influence can be seen as both a catalyst for his rise and a burden that complicated his rule. The expectations placed upon him by his family, combined with his own aspirations, painted a picture of a man constantly navigating between personal desire and public duty. In conclusion, understanding the role of family in Napoleon's life provides a richer context for evaluating his actions and motivation. While he is often portrayed as a solitary genius, the reality is that his family's dynamics were instrumental in shaping his identity and legacy. As we ponder the question of how his family shaped his story, we gain valuable insights into the complexities of leadership and the intricate dance between personal and political life. What lessons can we draw from Napoleon's experiences in balancing ambition with familial expectations? The answers may resonate beyond history, offering insights for our own lives and leadership challenges today. Urban Loop. What are the alternate theories surrounding Napoleon's death? Could it be that the truth is stranger than fiction? Napoleon Bonaparte, a figure both admired and reviled, continues to spark intrigue long after his passing. Most people think of his death as the end of a tyrant's reign, but the reality is filled with mystery and controversy that challenges this simple narrative. What really happened to him during those final days on Saint Helena, and what led to the myriad theories about his demise? One of the most prominent theories is that Napoleon was poisoned. Some believe that his food was laced with arsenic, a notion that adds an air of conspiracy to his already enigmatic life. The evidence? Napoleon's physician, Dr. Francesco Antamarchi, noted strange symptoms during the emperor's decline, including severe stomach pains. Many, even today, are quick to dismiss the idea of poisoning, but a peculiar fact arises. The walls of Napoleon's home on Saint Helena were painted with arsenic-laden green paint, and the fumes from the paint could have potentially contributed to his death. Could a combination of negligence and malice have been at play? Moreover, historical accounts often point to his health problems. While many scholars argue that Napoleon died of stomach cancer, there are contrasting views. Some medical professionals contend that he suffered from a host of issues, including ulcers, gallstones, or even lead poisoning from the wine he drank. Yes, you heard it right, lead poisoning. The wine was stored in lead-glazed containers, and it was not uncommon at that time for affluent individuals to have lead in their diets, contributing to a slow decline in health. Could the emperor's downfall have been as simple as his taste for fine wine? The debate extends to Napoleon's political enemies, who may have benefited from his demise. Most historians recognize that his return to power had ruffled many feathers, especially among those in Europe who wanted to ensure he remained powerless. Was his death a convenient turn of events for these leaders? The notion that he was intentionally killed rather than simply succumbing to illness paints a darker picture of the political machinations of the time. As we dive deeper, we find that some modern scholars are reevaluating the evidence surrounding Napoleon's health. Some suggest that he might have been suffering from a condition like diabetes, which could explain many of his symptoms and contribute to a decline that seemed mysterious to those around him. This rare perspective challenges us to reconsider what we know about his last days and to explore how illness can manifest in myriad ways. Interestingly, historical narratives have often sanitized the complexities of Napoleon's death. As people wrestle with the idea of a great leader succumbing to natural causes, the sensationalism of conspiracy theories fills a void. This inclination towards drama reveals a fundamental truth about human nature. We are drawn to stories that weave mystery, conflict, and intrigue. What's more, the legacy of Napoleon's demise has had significant ramifications for history. His death and the theories surrounding it have continued to fascinate and inspire countless books, films, and even academic studies. Each theory offers a different lens through which we can view not only Napoleon's life, but also the political landscape of his time. This invites us to think critically about how history is constructed and whose narratives are prioritized. In summary, the alternate theories surrounding Napoleon's death serve to illuminate the many layers of his life, showcasing how much remains unknown about this iconic figure. From poisoning and health issues to political intrigue, the complexity of his demise invites us to reflect on the ways in which history is interpreted. In examining these theories, we find not just the end of a life, but a rich tapestry of human experience and ambition, begging the question, what can we learn from the untold stories of those who came before us? As we ponder this, it becomes clear that the truth behind Napoleon's death is still very much a subject of debate and discovery. What theory resonates most with you? Open Loop. Did you know that the location of his final resting place speaks volumes about his complicated relationship with France? Napoleon Bonaparte, a name synonymous with power, ambition, and military genius, ended his extraordinary life far from the heights of his empire. Yet his burial site has become a symbol of his complex legacy. Most people think of Napoleon simply as a tyrant whose ambitions led to his downfall, but the reality is that his final resting place at Les Invalides in Paris represents much more than just a grave. It reflects the paradox of his life, a leader who shaped the course of European history, revered by some and reviled by others. others. When Napoleon died in exile on the remote island of Saint Helena in 1821, he was buried there, but this would not be his permanent resting place. The initial decision to bury him on Saint Helena was made with a distinct intention to ensure he would not return to power. However, the story didn't end there. In a remarkable turn of events, his remains were returned to France in 1840. The expedition to bring him home was led by King Louis Philippe, who aimed to reconcile the complex feelings toward Napoleon that were prevalent in post-revolutionary France. This act was not just a simple relocation of remains, it was a significant political gesture aimed at healing a divided nation. Napoleon's remains now lie in a grand tomb under the majestic dome of the Hôtel des Invalides, a site that itself has a rich history. Originally established as a hospital and home for veterans, Les Invalides embodies a unique duality. On one hand, it honors those who served France, while on the other, it serves as the final resting place for a man whose reign stirred immense loyalty and fierce opposition. This setting speaks to the complicated legacy of Napoleon, as he is simultaneously celebrated as a national hero and critiqued as a self-serving autocrat. Interestingly, Les Invalides is not just a monument to Napoleon, but also a place where military history is intertwined with personal narratives. Did you know that Napoleon's tomb is surrounded by the tombs of several other French military leaders? This arrangement creates a narrative that aligns him with other great figures in French military history, suggesting a deeper respect for his contributions, despite the controversies. This speaks to the French psyche, where national pride often mingles with the acknowledgement of a tumultuous past. While many view Napoleon as a figure of tyranny, others see him as a visionary who modernized France and implemented progressive reforms, such as the Napoleonic Code. This duality of perception is reflected in the manner of his burial. The extravagant nature of his tomb, made from red quartzite and adorned with gold, contrasts sharply with the austere surroundings of the Veterans Hospital, symbolizing the tensions between his imperial ambitions and the democratic ideals that emerged from the French Revolution. The public response to his burial was significant. Crowds flocked to Les Invalides to pay their respects, illustrating that, for many, Napoleon remained an enduring symbol of national identity and pride. However, this reverence is not universal. Critics argue that his glorification oversimplifies a complex history filled with war, suffering, and conquest. The very act of moving his remains to such a prominent site is viewed by some as an attempt to whitewash the darker aspects of his rule, emphasizing the controversial nature of his legacy. As we ponder the significance of Napoleon's burial site, it invites us to reflect on broader themes of power, memory, and national identity. The location of his tomb at Les Invalides challenges us to consider how history is written and remembered. It raises poignant questions about who we choose to honor and why, compelling us to think critically about our interpretations of historical figures. In conclusion, the burial site of Napoleon Bonaparte is not merely a final resting place. It is a rich tapestry of history that weaves together themes of ambition, nationalism, and memory. It symbolizes the complicated relationship France has with one of its most iconic figures. What does this tell us about how we view our leaders and the legacies they leave behind? As we explore these questions, we begin to understand that history is never straightforward, and the stories we tell can change with time, shaping our identities as nations and individuals. Napoleon's legacy continues to be a subject of debate and reflection, reminding us that history is as much about the present as it is about the past. Open loop. What are the alternate theories surrounding Napoleon's death? Did you know that Napoleon's demise is shrouded in mystery, with many theories suggesting everything from poisoning to natural causes? Napoleon Bonaparte's death on May 5, 1821, has long been a subject of fascination and debate, with various theories surrounding the circumstances leading to his final moments. Most people think that he simply succumbed to natural causes after years of exile, but the reality is far more complex and intriguing. Theories regarding his death not only reveal the nature of his historical narrative, but also how deeply intertwined politics and personal vendettas can be in shaping a legacy. One of the most prominent theories is the suggestion that Napoleon was deliberately poisoned. Some historians point to the strange circumstances surrounding his death, including symptoms that resemble arsenic poisoning. Interestingly, a sample of Napoleon's hair taken after his death was found to contain high levels of arsenic, leading some to speculate whether he was the victim of a conspiracy orchestrated by his enemy. This theory introduces a tantalizing element of intrigue into his already dramatic life, painting him not merely as a fallen emperor, but as a man who faced potential assassination even in exile. However, there's a counterpoint to this theory. Most medical experts argue that the high arsenic levels could be attributed to the environment in which he lived. Saint Helena was known for its use of arsenic in various household items, including the wallpapers of the time. This raises the question, was Napoleon actually poisoned, or was it simply a case of unfortunate circumstances? The complexity of this theory highlights how the interpretation of historical evidence can shift dramatically based on the context provided. Another theory suggests that Napoleon suffered from stomach cancer, which some historians believe was the real cause of his demise. In the years leading up to his death, he exhibited several troubling health issues, including severe abdominal pain and other gastrointestinal symptoms. Historians who subscribe to this theory argue that the lack of medical knowledge during that era could have led to misdiagnosis, leaving his illness unchecked and ultimately fatal. The irony here is striking. One of the greatest military strategists in history was unable to outmaneuver a disease that would lead to his downfall. Additionally, there are those who posit that Napoleon may have succumbed to the effects of lead poisoning, potentially caused by the lead-lined utensils and wine containers used during his time on Saint Helena. This theory is less discussed but no less fascinating, as it presents another layer of potential conspiracy surrounding his health. Imagine a man whose death could have been precipitated not by enemies wielding daggers, but by the very tools he used to live, illustrating the perilous intertwining of his environment and fate. Despite these various theories, one cannot overlook the political ramifications surrounding his death. Napoleon was a figure who created a massive upheaval in Europe, and his enemies would have preferred to see him dead rather than risk any chance of resurgence. The narrative of his death has been used by various political factions over the years to either vilify or glorify him, shaping public perception in ways that extend beyond mere historical fact. The investigations into his death also highlight the enduring fascination with Napoleon's legacy. People are captivated by the mystery and drama that surround his life, and the multitude of theories allows for endless speculation and debate. What is fascinating is that, even today, some continue to believe in various conspiracy theories regarding his death, showcasing how deeply rooted Napoleon's impact is in popular culture and history. In summary, the exploration of alternate theories surrounding Napoleon Bonaparte's death reveals not only the complexities of historical narratives, but also our innate desire to uncover hidden truths. The possibility of poisoning, stomach cancer, lead poisoning, and the overarching political environment offers a multifaceted view of a man whose life was defined by both brilliance and tragedy. As we delve into these theories, we are reminded that history is not simply a record of events. It is a living narrative shaped by interpretations, perceptions, and the timeless quest for understanding. So, which theory do you find most convincing? What do you think ultimately led to the end of one of history's most iconic figures? If you enjoyed this epic journey, please subscribe to our channel for more thrilling historical tales. Don't miss out on new videos. Hit the notification bell to stay updated.